Okay, in today's session, we are going to be discussing VPCs. So, VPC, by definition, uh, is a virtual private cloud. So, this is straight from the documentation on Amazon's website. So, it says a virtual private cloud enables us to launch AWS resources to a virtual network that you have defined. This virtual network closely resembles a traditional network that you operate in your own data center with the benefits of using AWS infrastructure. So, in essence, you have the ability to manage the subnets, the IP addresses, the routing, and the gateways. So, let's go ahead and jump in here. So, as you can see, I'm already logged into the console. Let's go ahead and do a quick refresh here. Log into the console. This is my VPC dashboard. Everything is operating as expected. Alright, so let's go ahead and create our first VPC. Alright, so let's do create VPC. And I just noticed while preparing for this recording that there are some new options here. So the first option is just to create the VPC only, and then the next option is we can do a entire virtual network, and this will create everything for us. I haven't tried this way yet, so I'm just going to stick with what I know, which is the VPC only route. And to do that, we need to start here. So let's give it a name. Let's do my custom VPC as the name. And then for the IPv4 CIDR block, we are going to use a custom value, just this guy. Okay, and then for the IPv6, we want to use a Amazon provided network, and we have that as a US East 1. So one thing to one thing to be aware of here is this guy, tenancy. So this can cause you a lot of headache if you do not pick the right tenancy here. So by default you have that's funny. So going into it, you have the option to select a default tenancy or a dedicated tenancy. So let me tell you the difference between the two. A dedicated tenancy will provision your own resources that are hardware specific just to your VPC. This should be noted that this is going to be a lot more expensive versus if you do a default tenancy, which this is you continue to use the AWS shared resources, so you benefit from the economies of scale versus having your own dedicated hardware. So if you do not need your own dedicated hardware, default tenancy is the way to go here. So let's double check everything. Got my VPC name, got my v4 CIDR block, and then my v6 CIDR block. Okay, and then let's do create VPC. Okay, so my VPC was successfully created. Now let's take a step back here. So now we see that I have a total, go back to the dashboard, but you can see that. So now I have a total of 2 VPCs in region US East 2. Okay. So let's take a deeper look at my custom VPC. So we said that the tenancy is set to default. This is just telling us this is not the default VPC that is available. If you'll notice here that this is associated with our main route table, so we hadn't made any changes there. Also, this is associated with our main NACL, Network Access Controllers. Alright, so a couple things here. So the first thing we want to check is the DNS resolution, and that's enabled. So let's hit save on that, and then edit DNS host names. Okay, so this is not enabled. So by turning this on, this is going to make sure that any instances that we spin up, first they'll get a public IP address. Now if we hit this checkbox, they will also get a publicly available DNS hostname. So that may be important to you, or it may not be, depending on the scope of your project. If you plan on having resources that are available outside of the AWS local network, you will want to enable this. So let's make that change. Save changes. Okay. So now that that's turned on, so our next step here is to provision our subnets, and you can see, just like everything else, we have several that are defaulted for us based off the default VPC, but now we want to create a custom subnet. So the plan for this project is to have a, what we're calling a three layers. So it's going to be your web layers at the top, then your application layer is the mid tier, and then the database layer is going to be the lower tier. So we're going to have three layers and a total of 9 subnets. Okay, so let's pause right there.